The Specialized Stumpjumper has been around for eternity, 37 years as of our Southwest Utah Bible bike tests. What started out as one of the first production mountain bikes has now morphed into 3 distinct variants straddling 2 different wheel sizes following trends slacker, more travel, bigger tires, but did it retain the stumpy feel?
So, it's a new Stumpjumper. To me, it still had that classic Stumpjumper trail bike feel.
And we should clarify, this is the 150 millimeter Stumpjumper. They also do shorter travel versions. Historically, they've been more around 140 millimeters. Now we're up to 150, 65.5 head tube angle. So things are getting more aggressive for it. And it's got 2.6 inch tires on these 27.5 wheels.
And we rode it in high.
We did, and it didn't even feel that high in high.
No, it felt hella low.
Hella low.
And other than on the climbs where it was just pedal strikes galore, I loved the low bottom bracket feel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this thing cornered incredibly well.
Yeah.
It was such a fun bike to corner on.
I expunged the corners from our test loop on this bike. They
And
were
actually,
gone.
we took 2 test loops on this. We went on the shorter travel course and we went on the longer travel course.
Yeah, and it was kind of revealing of how versatile this bike is, I think. I thought it was super fun, very quick to handle, and still really comfortable to climb on. It has this like very supple traction on the climbs where it gets this like rock crawlery feel, which is sort of amplified, I think, by the big tires.
Yeah, it's a really nice match. Not only that, I found it was really a playful feel to it. Suspension had a lot of pop to it. It was easy to preload it. On that short travel course, it just made everything a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
Once we took it into long travel course territory, that's where I felt like we were starting to get to the ends of the capability of this bike. And I could feel that I was on something not quite as long and drawn out as some of these other sleds that we were on this test.
Definitely not sled-like, but it's like a precision kind of bike. I mean, not only is the bike really, really playful on smoother trails and more fun poppy stuff, but once I did get it into that chunky bit, I felt like I could really pick a line really well. I mean, like my chances of crashing on this course are just going up the more times I ride it. So I'm like, I'm gonna take it a little bit easier today on the Stumpy, and I was able to like just pick every single line perfectly. I could almost like stop, check out a new line, get over to it, and you know, I really like the precision handling of the bike. But you know, it's definitely not one of these sleds, despite the fact that some of its geometry numbers might mislead you in that direction.
When 2.6 inch tires first made their appearance, we wondered, did we really need them? Were they just slimmer plus tires? Were they more burly, less burly? The Stumpy's approach to 2.6 is really compelling, augmenting poppy trail manners without suffocating zest. Capable, not overly commanding.
But it's not a super long wheelbase. The reach is quite short for a large these days, but it feels longer than it is because the bottom bracket's so low, you're sort of sitting in the bike. Like we have a Trek Remedy here for testing as well, which actually has a longer reach than the Stumpjumper, but the bottom bracket's about 2 centimeters higher, and I felt like I was more on top of that bike. As you get deeper into the travel, there's not quite as much support as I like.
Yeah, it feels pretty linear. I mean, Specialized lightened the tune quite a bit on this year's bike. They've gotten rid of a lot of the Olin stuff, which tended to feel very overdamped. So they've swung the pendulum way far to the opposite, where it's a very light tune and it feels supple and quick and responsive. But you could, when you hit hard landings and stuff, you could blow through it. And the spacer inside the air can is the second to the largest one available for those shocks, so you can't actually add a lot more ramp to the bike. Yeah. One of the biggest changes to new Stumpy, and I think this is the best Stumpy they've made in years, I feel like it pedals a lot better. Like I didn't feel the need to use the lockout on the shock very often.
Yeah, the only reason I flipped the lever was to try and boost the bottom bracket up a little bit, but it didn't end up making enough of a change to keep it that way and like risk forgetting that it was in pedal mode when the descent started.
One thing that's really interesting about this bike is it's a $4,500 bike, full NX drivetrain. Usually when I hear NX, I think it's gonna ride maybe like a little bit more of an entry-level bike, a heavier bike. this bike rode like a expensive lightweight bike. It was crisp, it felt light, easy to throw around. I thought that the parts were even nicer than they were on it.
Yeah, and it does ride like a light bike because it has a pretty lightweight frame on it. I mean, it's a full carbon frame. They didn't skimp and like put a alloy rear end on or anything. Like, it's a full carbon frame. So I think that it's starting off at a place, And to that point as well, I mean, you can upgrade the crap out of this bike for days and as stuff wears out, and you'll still have that full carbon chassis.
One place that might be nice to upgrade are the Guide R brakes. Keep saying that over and over, but
Guide regrets.
This is Guide regrets.
Yeah, the R's don't have the leverage that the RS's do with the swing link in them, so you don't get quite the same power. I feel like the Stumpjumper has been around a long time, right? And I feel like it's always trying to be a Stumpjumper at this one level. And our styles change. Mountain biking has changed over the years quite a bit. We're riding differently than we are now. And I think that the Stumpjumper, but it's always been a trail bike. And now it feels like a long travel trail bike. It's more confidence inspiring maybe than like a Rocky Thunderbolt, which is less travel, but has the same sort of feel. One thing that I really liked about the Stumpy, and I built my own from a frame, so I can speak to this. The cable routing is really cool. Like, you push the cables in one end and they pop out the other. Even like they make their way through the transfer between the main frame and the rear end. So it's actually really easy. It's simpler than external routing, unless you have to somehow for some reason take it apart. But it's pretty cool.
Cool. That's pretty cool.
So we were impressed. The lighter suspension tune and the switch to Fox suspension performed markedly better this Bible than last. And the increased capability without pedaling lethargy was applauded. But don't let the aggressive numbers fool you. This is and always has been a trail bike. It still feels that way, and it still has its limits. Be sure to check out bikemag.com for the full review and the rest of the Bible videos.